Yeah, today's daf is learn Le'ilu Nishmas Eliyahu ben Mordechai. Uncle Elliot, or as he was known in the shir as Uncle E, was a member of the shir from 1997, and he went through Shas with us. And he finished Shas with us, and him and Aunt Marsha were my very close relatives of mine, and very close to them. And it was really amazing because Uncle Elliot was not. He was determined. His yeshiva education left a lot to be desired, and he forced himself to go through Shas, and he was exceedingly intelligent, and he would be really enjoyed him very much, and I was very proud of him. And it's a schus to give the shir this evening, Leil Nishmas Eliyahu ben Mordechai, my chashuva Uncle Elliot. Neshama should have an aliyah. Okay, yesterday we began a sugya. Okay, we began a sugya of poiled eating b'shas malacha, and the two psukim that we focused on were the following: Ki sava b'kerem reyecha, when you come to the kerem of your friend, the vineyard of your friend, v'yachalta anavim, and you'll eat grapes, kinafshecha slavecha, v'yalkelicha lo sitein. And we learned in Ki sava he was speaking about a poil, and reyecha, and not a goy, not a kuti. And when it says kuti is mutter, so hegdish. V'yachalta, we said you should eat, but not go ahead and suck it out because you'll eat too much. And we said anavim, and no, you shouldn't take the anavim and put them something else. And very important for this evening is kinafshecha. Is kinafshecha Rashi? I'd like to just see a Rashi. He said kinafshecha shel balabayis kach nafshe shel poyel. Ma nafshecha oichel potter, just like the owner eats and is potter from meiser. Af nafshe shel poyel oichel and is potter from meiser. So the question is, why is it necessary to tell me that a poyel is potter from meiser? If you didn't have a gemar malacha yet, fellas, again, this is important. Usually, the key of meiser comes after there's a completion, what we call a gemar malacha. Since he's eating in the field, as of yet there wasn't a gemar malacha, so why do you need a pasuk to tell me that a person who is working, a poyel is working, can eat without taking off meiser? Why is he different than the balabas, right? In other words, we said he's like the balabas. So what's the havamina that you would thought otherwise? So I'd like to do the Rashi on Pei Zayin Amid Beis. It says, I say it's about 10 lines up. Ma nafshcha oichel upatim en ha'maisa. The holoi nigmra malachtoi l'maisa. Ditnan yayin mishyari lebar. So the owner does not eat until there's a gemar malacha. That's a given. And now the limud, just as the owner does not eat, does not have the maisa, because no gemar malacha, neither does the poil. Af poil oichlu pater. V'lo yamrinon, and we don't say poil de ba'agre achol, since he's eating and getting paid, al korcha shel balabayas havilei, and it's kemekach. Let's view it as what? He's buying it from the balabayas. Umekach koivas l'maiser. And mekach, as we're going to see, at least in the Havamina Deraisa, mekach is koiveya. In other words, if something does not have gemar malacha and you purchase it, the fact that you purchase it right then and there is mechayven and meiser, even if it didn't have a gemar malacha. So you would have thought a poil is the same as a loikeach. He's what? He's getting paid to work, and he's getting paid with these grapes to work. So you would think that what? It's like a mekach. And therefore, you'd have a havamina that you chayiv a ma'isa. Kemash malon, the poil is like the owner, and it's potter from ma'isa until it's gemar malacha. Guys, that's important for this year. So kinafshecha, the poil is kinafshecha like the owner. Just like the owner that doesn't have to take off ma'isa before gemar malacha, the poil does not have to take off for gemar malacha. So tonight's daf is very much a zroyim dikadaf and a ma'isa dikadaf, full of information. Not too difficult and very geschmack. So we're beginning on the bottom line of Pei Zayin Amid Beis. Rabbi Yanai, Ein hatevel mischayev b'meiser at she'yira pnei habayis. Tevel is not chayev in meiser until it goes through the house. It goes into the house through the front door, and it does that, then it's chayev in meiser. If it goes in the skylight or through the backyard, then it's not. So it has to be Yerepnei Abayis through the front door, the normal way in, but not through a back way or a back lot, or a skylight. Shinemar, it says in the part of removing Meiser, it says, Bi'arti HaKodesh min Abayis. I went ahead and I removed the Kodesh min Abayis. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion, Afilu Chotzer Kovas, even the Chotzer, going into the Chotzer before it gets into the house, will be Koveya Le'inyan Meiser. That would be a Gemara. So we learned something about Gemara Malacha. We know now we have Rabbi Yanai telling us the Gemara Malacha is Shir Pnei Abayis. And Rabbi Yochanan is saying, no, even earlier when it comes in the front chutzah, right? Remember, from my Erevin days, the chutzah came before the bayis. Shenemar v'achlu b'sharecha b'saveyu. And you'll eat sharecha in your gates b'saveyu, and you will be satiated. Rabbi Yochanan nami haksiv min abayis. Rabbi Yochanan says as well, min abayis, what does he do with the raya of Rabbi Yanai? He says, amalah chutzah dum yid abayis. You need a chutzah similar to a house. Ma abayis hamishtamer, af chutzah hamishtameres. In other words, I say Gemara Malacha is in the chutzner. What type of chutzner? Similar to bias. Just like a bias is mishtamer is watched, so too the chutzner is mishtamish. That will be koiveya le'inyan meiser. Rabbi Yanai nami yaksiv b'sharecha. L'chayre sharecha means the shar. It means when you go in the gate before you get into the house. In other words, when you're in the chutzner, it's koiveya. What does Rabbi Yanai, who says bias, do with Rabbi Yochanan's raya of chutzner? Ahumi boyle the ma'ayale derech shar. It has to go in the normal way through the gate. Lafuke derech gagois for kafifois deloy. In other words, if it goes in, derech kafifos and that. So again, machloikis amaroyim, gedoli amaroyim, Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yochanan. Where's kavei elamaisa? Rabbi Yanai when it gets into the house, Rabbi Yochanan in the chutzner. We're going to ask a question on both of them. Mas Rab Chanino chuzoi kinafshecha argemara. It says kinafshecha kach nafshe shel poyol ma nafshecha oichelu poter. Just like the owner, when he's in the field, eats it in his potter, af nafshe shel balabayis oichelu potter. So to what? The balabayis is, so to the worker is potter. Good. Now, what happens if it's not either one? What happens if it's one who buys it? Haloi keach chayiv. Again, what was the chiddush we saw the Rashi? That even though he's getting paid and ostensibly the grapes he's eating is considered a payment, nonetheless, the word nafshcha tells me it's not. But a regular person who would buy it would be chayiv. Where is he buying it from, guys? The field, not in the house, not in the chutzner. Kasha Rabbi Yanai, kasha on Rabbi Yochanan. So again, nachama. Masar Rab Chanina chuzoi kenafshecha, the pasuk says kenafshecha, kei nafshe shel poyel. Ma nafshecha oichel upater, af nafshe shel poyel ochel upater. Right? Halakei chayiv. My lab besode, it's speaking where he purchased it in the field. So it never was roi pnei abayis. It never came into the chutzner. Kasha Rabbi Yanai, kasha Rabbi Yochanan. Amra Papa hachi b'teina ha'imedes anukimta. We're speaking about a teina, a fig that's standing in the garden. V'noife noitu lechutzner. So the main tree is outside. The branch with the teina on it that is purchased is in the chutzner, and according to Rabbi Yanai, it's in the house. So the main tree is outside, but the fruit itself has entered the airspace of the chutzner, or Rabbi Yanai, it entered the airspace of the house, and therefore the lekeach is chayiv. Einachinami, had he bought it in the field, you'll be potter. He bought it because it already had entered the house according to Rabbi Yanai and the chutzner according to Rabbi Yochanan. One second, if you're telling me that it's in the house already and it's or in the chutzner already, respectively, why only the keich is chayiv? The balabas also should be chayiv, right? The balabas also should be chayiv. After all, it's roi pnei abayis according to Rabbi Yanai. It's roi the chutzner according to Rabbi Yochanan. So why in the world only is the keich chayiv? Why isn't the balabas himself chayiv? And for the Gemara, the balabayas, einov b'teinasai. His das is on the ikateina. His das is on what? On the tree that's outside the chutzner and outside the house. He doesn't care about the one fruit going in. He cares about the main thing. And the main thing is not roi pnei abayis or in the chutzner. Memela, he's potter. However, the one who buys it, what's concentration on, guys? What he bought. What did he buy? He bought the one that entered, right? Therefore, the lakeach ain't b'mechai. Here's the kedas on the Paris that he bought. And that's the Paris that what? That's inside the house. A very geschmack terrace, right? So kasha, again, shita Reb Yanai, it has to be right pnei abayis. Shita Reb Yochanan, it has to go ahead and it has to go ahead and be in the chutzner, or even early, before the house in the chutzner. Kasha from our Mishnah, the reason the person who is working is pata because we have a pasuk. The person who buys it will be chayiv. Is buying it in the field. It's not roi pnei abayis or the chutzner. And for the Gemara, this case is speaking where it was roi pnei abayis, roi pnei chutzner, because it's speaking about a branch with fruit that entered the chutzner or it entered the house itself. And therefore, the Lekech's das is upon that. You fulfill the requirements of Rabbi Yanai's house, the requirement of Yochanan's chutzner. And according to the so why is the Balabayas chayiv? Because his das is not on the few fruits of the branch that are in the house or in the chutzner. His das is on the ikka tree, and that's the reason he's pata from Maisa. For the Gemara, the Lekech midaraisa mi mechayiv. Now, based upon the Rashi we saw as we entered the Daf, guys, what's the havamina that you needed a pasuk to tell me the poil is not chayiv and meiser? Because you could view as being bought, right? He's eating, the guy's paying him. He's like, he bought the grapes. Like, so he gave him money, and he bought the grapes. That's the havamina. And I needed a pasuk to tell me it's not a loikeach. What happens if a loikeach is not chayiv midaraisa? So why would I need the pasuk then? If the loikeach is not chayiv midaraisa, why do I need the pasuk? Fred the Gemara. The loikeach midaraisa mi mechayiv, is loikeach midaraisa really chayiv that you need a pasuk to go ahead and tell me the poil is pater from Maisa? Batanya, why were the stores of Beis Hinoi? It was a place. Why was it destroyed? Shalashanim koidim Yerushalayim. Why was it destroyed 3 years before Yerushalayim? They would go ahead and they kept it. They disregarded the Chachamim and they kept it. They everything said if the Torah matted it, they matted it. And they didn't listen to the Chachamim. Shaya Omrim Amid Beis. The pasuk says. Now it says it's two psukim simultaneously. It's not one pasuk. The pasuk says Aser to Aser. The pasuk says Aser to Aser as kol tavua sarecha, and the next pasuk says V'achatu fnei Hashem Elokecha b'makam sheyivchar. So you separate the Maisa and you take it up to Yerushalayim. So Aser to Aser v'chalta. So they said v'loi moicha, but not someone who sells to any other people. In other words, if you sell to somebody else, you're not chayiv b'maisa. Tavua zarecha, the tavua of your zarecha, the lo yalekeach, right? But and not and lecheich is what tavua zarecha, the tavua of your field, but not lekeach. So what's chayiv b'maisa, guys? Your tavua. But if you bought it, you're not chayiv. So how can you tell me your lekeach is chayiv? You see from over here, lokeach, what is pater from Maisa. So the Gemara says, Elo, what do you have to say? Midarabanon. It's the Rabbanon that the lokeach is chayiv in Maisa, right? And when we said kinafshecha, it's only an asmachta. So BMS guys, the lokeach is pater, and the poil is pater, and it's an asmachta to find the patur for why the poil doesn't eat. It's an asmachta. So in the Havamina, it was the Raisa. Since it was the Raisa, we needed a limud to tell me the poil is different than a lakeach. Kamashma of lakeach is pata, is also pata. The elit of course in Asmachta, we find a source for the patur of the lakeach from the word of the worker from the word kinafshecha. So now the word wants to know el kinafshecha l'mayasa. So taka midaraisa, what do I need the pasuk for? If the rule is extra, what do I need it for? The chiditanya kinafshecha ma nafshecha. Imchasamta, you yourself, if you don't want to eat, you don't have to. You're pater what from the lav of safsim shor b'dishay. There's an issa deraisa to go ahead and muzzle a shor when it's threshing. So if you're the owner, you muzzle yourself and you don't eat. You're not over. You're pater from the lav. Af poil imchasamta. If you muzzle the poil, Rashi says either by paying him off or bechaska or telling him I'll break your kneecaps, you'd also be pater. So kinafshecha, the same din as you regarding the lav of chasima does not apply to the poil. The poil also does not have, is also like you, just like there's no lava chasima by you, there's no chasima by the poil. Masav Mazutra, Rav Zutra asked on Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yochanan, who said Ra Pnei Abayis and the Chatzar, Eza Garnoi, which is a Goyrin. Goyrin means Gemar Malacha, guys. That's a euphemism for, usually Goyrin means the threshing floor. And for us, it means the Gemar Malacha for a different type of Paris. Lemaisus. What's the Gemar Malacha for Maiser? In other words, until this, Nachai v'Mais. Kishun are cucumbers, Tiluin are gourds, melons, Mishayif Kasu. Mishkasu is that when the pitum comes off, the blossom comes off. Bamravasi, Mishayitel Pikam Shalahen, the perach that godel at the top, the bloom that grows on the top, the blossom falls off. At that time, when it falls off, right, then it's considered what? Chayiv and Ma'aser. That's the Gemara Malacha. My love, Mishayifsku v'afila b'sadeh. So you see that even in the field, when that goes off, it's Gemara Malacha. So you don't need like Rabbi Yanai Roy Pnei Abayis. You don't need like Rabbi Yochanan to go ahead and see the Chatzah, guys, right? In other words, I'm giving you an earlier Zman of Gemara Malacha in the field. It says in Malay, Mishayifsku v'Abayis. It had to be in the house or the Chatzah, and that's when it happened. In other words, if you okay, so in the field, it would not be a Gemara Malacha. Once it got into the house, guys, it's also not a Gemara Malacha until it loses its blossom. If that's the case, don't say when it loses its blossom, because that's not enough. You should say ad sheyifsaku. It's still, even when it's in the house, ad sheyifsaku, until it loses its blossom, you putter. According to you, Mishayivsku means that's the only criteria for what the Gemara Malacha, when it loses its blossom. But according to you, there's another criteria. It has to be in the house. So it should say from when it loses its blossom. You should say until it loses its blossom, meaning it's still in the house and it's still pata because until it loses its yifsuku. Says the Gemara, Itana Achiyivsuku, if you would learn Achiyivsuku, I would have thought at the Gemara lepikusayu. I would say all the grain, not just this particular one. I would say all the fruit would have to lose their blossoms. And therefore, when it began losing it, then you chayiv. You don't have to wait to all of them, even the ones that in the house and began to lose it would be chayiv. You don't have to wait for the whole crop. Masam Azucha Breder of Nachman, another kasha on Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yochanan. Notice usually you ask a question one and the other. These two guys are they're in the same boat. They're both being bombarded by Tanaic sources. Garno lemaisa. What's the goyrin for maisa, for grain? L'chayev aleh mishum tevel. In other words, you have to tithe it, and you be chayev misa b'dei shemayim if you eat it. Mishetigmer melachton. When it completes the malacha, be'ezeh gemar melachton, meleches hachnasason. The malacha of gathering. My love hachnasason means gathering together. Va'afilu b'sadeh. Gathering, fellas, the lashon of kinus. To gather together a kri in the field, so you chayev even before it's the chatzar or the bias. Again, you Rabbi Yanai, you Rabbi Yochanan said the Gemar Malacha is in the house or the chatzar, respectively. Here you see even in the Sadeh, you'd have a Gemar Malacha, Kasha and Rabbi Yochanan and the Rabbi Yanai. It says Maloi hachnasasan lebayis zehu Gemar Malachtan. In other words, guys, the word hachnasasan is not the word kinus. It's not the word of gathering. It means hachnasa, entering. In other words, the play on words. Do you learn it as what? As gathering, or do you learn it as hachnasa, entering? And the answer is entering, and therefore it's not chayiv until it enters. Be by same another teretz. He come Rabbi Yanai. When the Rabbi Yanai say his din about Roy Pnei Abayis, he wasn't speaking about grain. Grain in the chinami in the field is Gemar Malacha for that. Where's the Gemar Malacha? Where's the Gemar Malacha that there is no grain? In other words, it says rachis the goncha, guys. The goncha means digun. Digun means piled up. You pile it up in the field. You have a haystack in the field. There, we're not speaking about that. He agrees over there. When they say Roy Pnei Abayis, something that you do not go ahead, such as grapes and such as zaysim. Grapes and zaysim, right? You don't make piles of them. You put them in vats and everything, but you don't pile them up in stacks. And the zaysim anavim the lab b'nei gorin in it. They're not something that's b'nei gorin. Because midaraisa, there's only maisa, the only trumas and maisa from three things: the grain of Eretz Yisrael, the dagon is that dagon we said, yitzhar, right? Is olives, and tirosh, which is wine. So Rabbi Yana is being very exact. I'm giving you 3 gemar malachas. One, digun, I agree, is in the field. You peep it up. When I said roa pnei abayis, I was going on the other 2 midoraisa dekachiyuvim, which is zaysim, olives, and anovim, very geshmak. Avachit and Siren Gorin behead Yakasib. It says Gorin openly, and therefore I agree you don't need roy pnei abayis. Okay. Ashkechin Adam b'mechuba. Okay, so now we go ahead. We found Adam is b'mechuba, right? He's working in the psukim. He's working in a kerem. He's working in a comma. Guys, the comma is the sickle, right? He's cutting. That was the other pasuk. Yeah, the other pasuk over here. Here we go. Right? Kisavo b'komas reyecha b'katafta melilos b'yadecha the chemesh le'sanif, and chemesh is the lashon of sickle. You're cutting. Kamas reyecha standing grain. It's mechuba. So we have a pasuk that goes ahead and tells me that a person eats mechuba. The other place we find a person eating, a worker, is the animal. Le'sachsim shar b'dishay. So guys, let's go ahead, let's go ahead and do the 2. Le'sachsim shar b'dishay. Dishay is threshing. It's disconnected. It's talosh. So we have a pasuk for mechuber. We have a pasuk for talosh, but we don't have them by the same workers. The pasuk of mechuber is speaking by a human being. The pasuk of talosh is speaking by a shar, speaking by an animal. How do we know that the din of le'sachsim shar b'dishay applies to mechuber by an animal? And how do we know the din of poiled eating applies even to talosh and not just mechuber? That's the rest of the daf. Ashkechin adam b'mechuber. The shar b'talosh, as we just spoke out. Adam b'talosh minalan. How do you know an adam could eat in the field b'talosh when it is disconnected? It says mishar umashar shein oichel b'mechuber. A shar, meaning a shar, not that the shar doesn't eat b'mechuber. It's not mefurish in the Torah that he eats mechuber. Guys, listen to my words. It's not mefurish in the Torah that he eats. Like sachsim shar b'disha, he's threshing. It's disconnected. But so it's not mefurish in the Torah that he eats b'mechuber. Nonetheless, oichel b'talosh. Adam she'oichel b'mechuber, as we saw, the word kama is standing grain. He's eating b'mechuber. Ein edin she'oichel af b'talosh. So that would make sense. We have a kal v'chomer. If a shard that doesn't say anything about mechuber, it says about talosh, an adam where it says about mechuber, ein edin b'talosh. So you'll ask a question, malash shar shekain ata mitzuva al chasim basai. You mitzuva a shar, you can't close your mouth. You can't close it up. There's no issa of sachs shabadisha by a human being, as we just saw before. Says the Gemara, okay, then let's do the opposite. Let's learn out that there would be an issa to go ahead and stuff up your worker. Or your mikal mishar. You're sure that you're not mechuyev to let it live. You don't have to feed it. Sabah l'chaim might be, but you're not mechuyev to let it feed it. You're commanded on muzzling it. There's a mitzvah to let him live. It's not a kal v'chomer that you're commanded on his chasima. So let's learn out from the kal v'chomer not only that adam bid talish, but adam even there would be a din of like sachsham adam b'disha. Makro kenafshecha, and this is what we said earlier. Kenafshe shall poil. Right, just like yourself, if you don't eat your potter, so you have a pasuk to go ahead and tell me that kal v'chomer doesn't exist. The bottom line is, fellas, if the source for adam b'talosh, again, we have a source for adam mechuber, comma, the source for talosh was an animal, that doesn't work because your kal v'chomer is slugged up. So the ela adam b'talosh minalan. How do you know an adam eats b'talosh? Amakra kama shtei pamim meina inil adam mechuber tnei inil adam b'talosh. So looking at our pasuk, kisavai b'kamas reyecha. It said the word kama once. The kanafta melilas b'yedecha. You'll roll the melilas in your hand. The chemesh le'sanif al kamas reyecha. What's the second kama, guys, for? If I don't need it from mechuber because it says it over here, I'll use it for talosh. So I learn it from the pasuk itself. I don't learn it from a comparison to shar, le'sachsim shabbat shar. I learn it from the pasuk itself. One for mechuber, one for talish, and therefore I know that an Adam, a poil, not only would eat b'mechuber, he would even eat b'talish. Guys, how are we doing? Good, we're good? It's not a hard blood. It's good. Okay, next. Now we have to figure out what about an animal b'mechuber, right? What about an animal b'mechuber? Shor b'mechuber minolan. How do you know? Rav Ami Amar, excuse me, I skipped. Rav Ami Amar, b'tolish leitzarach kra. I don't need a pasuk for that. Ksiv kisava b'kerem reyecha. Milu askidish shesachar lekatef v'amrachmon alecho. Where we're learning mechuba from, guys? Kisava kamatz reyecha, standing grain. Good. So you said you need this one for tolish. What's this pasuk speaking about? Kisava b'kerem reyecha. You come in the kerem of your friend. The achalta anovim, and you eat anovim. So it could be the anovim are disattached. In other words, this pasuk doesn't come out, we know is attached because that's what it means, standing grain. Over here, it doesn't say the anovim are on the tree. It says anovim. You go in there and you find you find Ernest and Julio. Well, that's Ernest and Julio. Where did that come from? They'll never sell a wine before its time. Is that the Ernest and Julio Gallo? This is coming out of who knows where. Not a good place. Anyway, so Gishmak, guys. It's very it's Gishmak. So in other words, says Rav Ami beautifully, from the word pasuk of kama, I know mechuber, and the pasuk of kisava b'kem reach, I know talish. Now, what about animals? Shaber mechuber minolan. How do you know the Israel Sachsam Shabadishar is not limited to talish? It would apply to mechuber as well. How do you know? Again, we go through the same Gemara and end up with psukim. Ma adam she'ein oichel b'talish. An adam that doesn't eat b'talish, right? Meaning what? It's not mefurish in the Torah eats b'talish. It's not mefurish eats in the Torah b'talish, right? Oichel b'mechuber, shor she'oichel b'talish. It says lo sachsam shabadishay ein edin she'oichel b'mechuber. I say ma the adam shekein atam mitzvah lachayosai. Adam you mechuyev to let him to give him life. Time av shor she'atam mitzvah lachayosai. Now, so let's go the other way. Be sure mitzvah lachayosai mikal v'choymer. So therefore, like we said, kal v'choymer lo sachsam shabadishay should apply to Adam. So too the din of supporting a shor should supply that we mechuyev to support a shor. Ma adam she'atam mitzvah achsimasai. Atam mitzvah lachayosai. Shor she'atam mitzvah achsimasai. Ein edin she'atam mitzvah lachayosai. Amakra. Bottom line is, I can't learn out shor from a kal v'chomer for Adam to mechayev me leisachsim shabadisha by mechuber. Bel shor ben mechuber minolan. How do we know shor ben mechuber? Amakra. The pasuk says re'acha re'acha. Let's get it up here for the final time. Kisavay kamas re'acha. V'katafna melilas beidecha. V'chemesh le'saval kamas re'acha. So it says re'acha twice. First one for if I don't need it for Adam, because I have Adam from Kama, I'll use it what? For Shar. That it didn't have Shar from Mechuba. It didn't Shar from Mechuba. So that's what I'll use it for. Ravina Amar, Ravina says, like Adam betalish, like Shar Mechuba, tzricha krai. I don't need a pasuk. Says Ravina, it's pashit that a poil can eat betalish, and it's pashit that the din like sachsam shabadishay applies to mechuber. I don't need a pasuk for that. The chsiv it says like sachsam shabadishay. Do not muzzle a shor in its thresh. Amid aleph michti kol mili isnahu b'chasima. The afinan shor mishabes. In other words, the word shor is totally extraneous. Any animal, it says just like Shabbos, you mitzvah not to work your shor. Who adin you mitzvah not to work any animal in Shabbos. Period. So the word shor it has in Cain lichle rachmana leisidosh b'chasima. Just right. Do not any animal you're using. Do not muzzle. Shor dekas rachmana lamali. Why do you choose to write shor there? La kushe choisim lenechsem, to make a hekesh between the adam who's doing the muzzling lenechsem to the what, to the shor that is being muzzled, to the shor that is the nechsam, the shor that's being muzzled. So that's what the hekesh is for. Ma choisem oichel b'mechuber, just like the choisem, the adam eats b'mechuber, as it says, kama, af nechsam oichel b'mechuber, so too the shor eats b'mechuber. And now the other way. Uma nechsam, the shor oichel b'talish, leisachel shor b'disha is speaking ma b'talish, af choisem oichel b'talish. So to what? So bottom line is, we try to figure out, at Lamaskona, everyone agrees that a poil can eat, whether it's connected or disconnected. There's a machlokes where you learn it from. The shor is islay saxon shor b'dishor is even not only b'dishoy when it's threshing, but even in mechuber. And the final say, according to Ravina, is that we make a hekesh between what? We make a hekesh between the man where it says mechuber and the shor where it says talish, right? The word shor is extra, so we make a hekesh between. So just like Adam is b'mechuber, so to the shor is mechuber. Just like the shor is betalish, Adam is also betalish.